I stood in the bathroom, staring at the little pink plus sign on the pregnancy test. My hands trembled as I gripped the sink, a mix of joy and dread washing over me. How would Dane react? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation ahead. As I stepped into our living room, the sounds of laughter and clinking glasses assaulted my ears. Dane and his friends were already deep into their Friday night revelry. "Honey," I called out, trying to catch his attention over the noise. Dane glanced up from his animated conversation, his eyes slightly glazed. "What's up, babe?" I motioned for him to join me in the kitchen, away from prying ears. He sauntered over, drink in hand, a lopsided grin on his face. "I need to talk to you about something important," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Dane leaned against the counter, taking a swig from his glass. "Can it wait? I'm in the middle of telling the guys about our Aspen trip." I swallowed hard, pushing down the irritation rising in my throat. "No, it can't wait. I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air between us. Dane's eyebrows shot up, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of excitement in his eyes, but as quickly as it appeared it vanished. "Oh," he said, his tone flat. "Well, that's unexpected." My heart sank. "Is that all you have to say?" Dane shrugged, glancing back towards the living room. "What do you want me to say, Hannah? We'll deal with it later. Right now, I've got guests to entertain." Before I could respond, he was already heading back to his friends, leaving me alone in the kitchen with my news and my disappointment. I retreated to our bedroom, closing the door on the sounds of merriment. As I sat on the edge of the bed, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Max, Dane's childhood friend. "Hey, Hannah. Everything okay? You looked upset when you left the room." I hesitated before replying, "Just not feeling well. Thanks for asking." A moment later, another message. "Want me to send Dane up?" I sighed, typing back, "No, it's fine. He's busy with the party." There was a long pause before Max's response came through. "You know, if you ever need to talk." I stared at the screen, a lump forming in my throat. Max had always been kind, always noticed when things weren't right. Unlike Dane, a knock at the door startled me. "Hannah?" It was Dane. "The guys want to play poker? Mind if we use the dining room table?" I closed my eyes, counting to 10 before answering. "Sure, go ahead." "Thanks, babe. You're the best," Dane called out, his footsteps already retreating down the hall. I lay back on the bed, one hand resting on my still flat stomach. This wasn't how I'd imagined sharing the news of our first child. In my dreams, there had been joy, excitement, plans for the future. Instead, I got indifference and a poker game. As the night wore on, the noise from downstairs grew louder. Laughter, shouts, the occasional crash of something being knocked over. I tried to block it out, to focus on the miracle growing inside me. But with each passing hour, a realization grew alongside it. This child deserved better. I deserved better. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Max. "I'm heading out. Are you sure you're okay?" This time, I didn't hesitate. "No," I typed. "I'm not okay at all." Weeks passed, and my pregnancy progressed, but life in our house remained unchanged. If anything, Dane's parties grew more frequent and wilder. I found myself constantly cleaning up after his friends, dodging drunken guests, and trying to find moments of peace in my own home. One Saturday morning, I woke to the sound of breaking glass. I rushed downstairs to find Dane and his buddies sprawled across the living room, surrounded by empty bottles and overturned furniture. "Dane," I said, my voice tight with frustration, "we need to talk." He looked up at me, bleary-eyed and confused. "What's the problem, babe?" I gestured around the room. "This. All of this. I'm 4 months pregnant, and our house is a constant disaster zone. We need to make some changes." Dane stumbled to his feet, swaying slightly. "Come on, Hannah. It's just a little fun. Don't be such a buzzkill." His words stung, but I pressed on. "This isn't about fun. It's about responsibility. We're going to be parents soon." One of Dane's friends, a guy named Trevor, piped up from the couch. "Hey, man, maybe she's right. You should listen to your old lady." Dane whirled on him, suddenly angry. "Don't tell me how to handle my wife, Trevor. This is my house, and I'll do what I want." I felt tears pricking at my eyes. "Your house? What about our home, Dane? What about our family?" He waved a dismissive hand. "We've got plenty of time for all that boring family stuff later. Right now, we're young. We should enjoy it while we can." I stood there, stunned by his callousness. As I turned to leave, I caught sight of Max, who had been quietly observing from the corner. His eyes met mine, filled with sympathy and something else I couldn't quite name. Later that afternoon, as I was folding laundry in our bedroom, there was a soft knock at the door. It was Max. "Hey," he said, his voice gentle. "I wanted to check on you. That scene downstairs was pretty rough." I sighed, sinking onto the bed. "I don't know what to do anymore, Max. It's like Dane doesn't even care about the baby or me." Max sat beside me, careful to keep a respectful distance. "Have you thought about talking to someone? Maybe a counselor?" I shook my head. "Dane would never agree to that. He doesn't think there's a problem." "What about for yourself, then?" Max suggested. "You need support, Hannah. This isn't healthy for you or the baby." As I considered his words, we heard a commotion from downstairs. Dane's voice rang out, loud and slurred. "Hey, everyone, who's up for a pool party?" I groaned, burying my face in my hands. "I can't do this anymore, Max. I just can't." He placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "You don't have to. Listen, I know it's not my place, but I care about you, Hannah. Both of you," he added, nodding towards my growing belly. "If you need a place to stay, to clear your head, my guest room is always open." I looked up at him, surprised by the offer and the warmth in his eyes. For a moment, I allowed myself to imagine a different life, one filled with peace and understanding. But before I could respond, Dane's voice boomed from the hallway. "Hannah? Where are you? The guys want to use our bedroom for beer pong." Max's expression hardened. "That's it," he muttered, standing up. "I'm going to talk some sense into him." As he strode towards the door, a mix of gratitude and fear washed over me. "Max, wait," I called out. He paused, looking back at me. "What is it?" I took a deep breath, my hand resting protectively over my stomach. I think I'm ready to take you up on that offer." I woke up in Max's guest room, the unfamiliar quiet a stark contrast to the chaos I'd left behind. As I made my way to the kitchen, I heard Max's voice, low and intense. "Dane, you need to get your act together. Hannah's pregnant, for God's sake." I froze, listening to Dane's muffled response through the phone. "I don't care about your stupid business deals," Max snapped. "Your wife needed you, and you chose to party instead." There was a pause, then Max sighed heavily. "Fine, just think about what I said, okay?" I cleared my throat, announcing my presence. Max spun around, his face softening when he saw me. "Hannah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for you to hear that." "It's okay," I said, settling into a chair at the kitchen table. "Thank you for trying." Max poured me a cup of herbal tea, his movements careful and deliberate. "How are you feeling?" "Honestly, lost," I admitted. I never thought I'd be 5 months pregnant and hiding out at my husband's best friend's house. Max sat across from me, his eyes full of concern. "You're not hiding, Hannah. You're protecting yourself and your baby." Just then, the front door burst open. Dane stumbled in, reeking of alcohol and cigarettes. "There you are," he slurred, pointing an accusing finger at me. "What the hell, Hannah? You can't just leave like that." I stood up, instinctively placing a hand over my swollen belly. "Dane, you're drunk. Go home." He lurched forward, but Max stepped between us. "Back off, Dane. You're not thinking straight." Dane's face contorted with rage. "Oh, I see how it is. You two sneaking around behind my back, huh?" "It's not like that," I protested, but Dane was beyond reason. He shoved Max hard, sending him stumbling backward. "Some friend you are stealing my wife." Max regained his balance, his voice low and dangerous. "Nobody's stealing anyone, Dane. Hannah came here because she felt unsafe in her own home, because of you." Dane's eyes widened, a flicker of shame crossing his face before anger took over again. "You don't know anything about our marriage." "I know enough," Max replied calmly. "I know that Hannah deserves better than what you've been giving her." Dane lunged at Max, his fist connecting with Max's jaw. I screamed as the two men grappled, knocking over chairs and slamming into walls. "Stop it!" I yelled, tears streaming down my face. "Both of you, just stop!" They froze, chests heaving, staring at each other with a mixture of anger and regret. "This is exactly why I left," I said, my voice shaking. "I can't live like this anymore, Dane. I won't bring our child into this chaos." Dane's shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of him. "Hannah, I'm sorry. I'll do better, I promise." I shook my head, years of disappointment and broken promises weighing heavily on me. "It's too late for that, Dane. I need more than empty words." Max touched his split lip gingerly, watching us with a guarded expression. "What do you want to do, Hannah?" I took a deep breath, feeling the baby kick as if in encouragement. I want a divorce. The words hung in the air, heavy with finality. Dane's face crumpled, a mix of shock and despair. You can't mean that, he whispered. We're having a baby. Yes, we are, I said, my resolve strengthening. And that's why I have to do this. Our child deserves better than what we've become. As Dane stumbled out, defeated and dazed, I turned to Max. His eyes met mine, filled with a complex mixture of emotions. What now? He asked softly. I squared my shoulders, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over me. Now I start over, for me and for my baby. The weeks following my decision to divorce Dane were a whirlwind of emotions and practical challenges. I'd moved back into our house, while Dane stayed with a friend. The silence was both a relief and a reminder of how much had changed. One afternoon, as I sorted through our shared belongings, my phone buzzed with a text from Max. How are you holding up? Need any help? I smiled, grateful for his constant support. I'm okay, just packing up memories. Want some company? I can bring coffee and a sympathetic ear. I hesitated, then replied, That would be nice, thanks. An hour later, Max arrived, 2 steaming cups in hand. As we sat on the living room floor, surrounded by boxes, I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. I don't know how I would have gotten through this without you, Max, I said softly. He smiled, his eyes warm. You're stronger than you think, Hannah. You would have found a way. As we talked, I found myself opening up about my fears and hopes for the future. Max listened intently, offering gentle advice and reassurance. You know, he said, being a single parent isn't easy, but it's not impossible. Look at me and Sarah, we manage. I nodded, thinking of Max's adorable 5-year-old daughter. You're an amazing father, Max. I hope I can be half as good a mother. He reached out, squeezing my hand. You will be, I have no doubt. The moment was interrupted by the sound of a key in the lock. Dane burst in, his eyes wild and bloodshot. What the hell is this? He shouted, glaring at our joined hands. I jumped to my feet, heart racing. Dane, it's not what you think. Max was just helping me pack. Dane sneered, his words slurring slightly. Oh, I'm sure he was very helpful. Is this why you want a divorce? So you can shack up with my best friend? Max stood, placing himself between us. That's enough, Dane. You're drunk and upset. Why don't you go cool off? Dane lunged forward, shoving Max hard. Don't tell me what to do in my own house. I stepped back, fear coursing through me. Dane, please, think about the baby. You're scaring me. His face contorted with rage. The baby? How do I even know it's mine? Maybe you've been fooling around with Max this whole time. The accusation hit me like a physical blow. How dare you? I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. Max's voice was low and dangerous. You need to leave, Dane? Now. Dane laughed bitterly. Oh, that's rich. You want me to leave so you can comfort my wife? Fine. You know what? You two deserve each other. Hannah, you want to sleep in the kitchen to make room for your new boyfriend? The cruel words hung in the air, a reminder of all the times Dane had dismissed my feelings and needs. In that moment, something inside me snapped. Get out, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Get out of this house and don't come back until you're sober and ready to act like a decent human being. Dane's eyes widened, shocked by my forceful tone. He opened his mouth to argue, but Max stepped forward, his presence imposing. You heard her, Dane. Leave. Now. For a tense moment, I thought Dane might lash out again, but then his shoulders slumped and he turned away, slamming the door behind him. As the adrenaline faded, I sank onto the couch, shaking. Max sat beside me, careful not to touch me. Are you okay? He asked gently. I nodded, then shook my head, then burst into tears. Max hesitated, then pulled me into a comforting hug. As I cried, I realized I couldn't stay in this house anymore. It held too many painful memories, too much of Dane's presence. Max, I said, pulling away and wiping my eyes, I need to ask you something important. He looked at me, concern etched on his face. Anything, Hannah. I took a deep breath. Do you still have that spare room available? I sat in Max's guest room, staring at my phone. The number for Dane's Aunt Joan glowed on the screen, my thumb hovering over the call button. I hadn't spoken to her in years, not since Dane had cut ties with her after a heated argument. But I needed her strength now more than ever. Taking a deep breath, I pressed call. Hello? Joan's familiar, gravelly voice answered. It's Hannah. I need your help. There was a pause, then. Hannah, dear, what's wrong? The dam broke. I poured out everything, the pregnancy, Dane's indifference, the constant parties, and now the impending divorce. Joan listened quietly, only occasionally murmuring words of sympathy. "Oh, honey," she said when I finished. "I'm so sorry you're going through this. Where are you now?" "I'm staying with Max, Dane's friend. I couldn't stay in that house anymore." Joan's voice hardened. "Max, the single father? Hannah, are you sure that's wise?" I felt a flicker of defensiveness. Max has been nothing but kind and supportive. "I'm sure he has," Joan said, her tone careful. "But you're in a vulnerable position, dear. People might talk." Before I could respond, there was a knock at the door. Max poked his head in, his expression troubled. "Hannah, Dane's here. He's demanding to see you." My heart raced. "Joan, I have to go. Dane's here." "Wait," Joan's voice was urgent. "Put me on speaker. I want to hear this." Hands shaking, I followed her instructions and walked out to the living room, where Dane stood, looking disheveled and angry. "There you are," he sneered. "Cozy little setup you've got here with Max." "Dane," Max warned, but I held up a hand to stop him. "What do you want, Dane?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He laughed bitterly. "What do I want? I want my wife back. I want you to stop this ridiculous divorce nonsense and come home." "Is that Dane I hear?" Joan's voice crackled through the phone speaker. Dane's eyes widened in shock. "Aunt Joan, what the hell?" "Watch your language, young man," Joan snapped. "Now, what's this? I hear about you treating your pregnant wife like a doormat?" Dane's face flushed with anger. "This is none of your business, you old bat. Hannah, hang up the phone. We need to talk privately." I felt a surge of courage, bolstered by Joan's presence, even if only through the phone. "No, Dane. I'm done with private talks that go nowhere. You want to talk? Let's talk right here, right now." "Fine," he spat. "You want to air our dirty laundry? How about we talk about how you've been cozying up to my best friend while I've been working my ass off to provide for our family?" Max stepped forward, his jaw clenched. "That's enough, Dane. You know that's not true." "Oh, defending her honor now, are we?" Dane sneered. "Both of you, stop it!" I shouted, surprising even myself with the force in my voice. "This isn't about Max. This is about us, Dane. About how you've ignored me, dismissed my feelings, and turned our home into a frat house. I'm having a baby, your baby, and you can't even be bothered to show up to a single doctor's appointment." The room fell silent, save for Joan's soft, "That's it, girl. Let it out." Dane's face crumpled, the anger giving way to something that looked almost like remorse. "Hannah, I didn't realize, but I wasn't finished. I've tried, Dane. God knows I've tried. But I can't do this anymore. I won't bring our child into this toxic environment." "So that's it?" Dane's voice was small. "You're just giving up on us?" I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt a wave of sadness for what we'd lost. "No, Dane. You gave up on us a long time ago. I'm just finally accepting it." As Dane stumbled out, defeated, I turned to Max, who was watching me with a mix of concern and admiration. "Hannah," Joan's voice came through the phone, "I think it's time you came to stay with me for a while. What do you say?" I looked around at Max's cozy home, then down at my swollen belly. It was time for a fresh start, away from all of this. "Yes," I said, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. "I think that's exactly what I need." I stood on Joan's porch, my heart pounding as I watched Dane's car pull up. It had been 2 weeks since I'd moved in with his aunt, and he'd finally agreed to meet. As he stepped out of the car, I noticed how disheveled he looked. A far cry from his usual polished appearance. "Hannah," he said, his voice hoarse, "can we talk?" Before I could respond, Joan appeared beside me, her presence both comforting and formidable. "You can talk right here, Dane. I think we've all had enough of your private conversations." Dane's jaw clenched, but he nodded. "Fine. Hannah, I'm sorry. I've been a terrible husband. I want to make things right." I felt a flicker of hope, quickly extinguished by the memory of countless broken promises. "How, Dane? How can you possibly make this right?" He ran a hand through his unkempt hair. "I've stopped drinking. I'm seeing a therapist. I want to be there for you and the baby. Please, just give me another chance." I wavered, torn between my lingering feelings for him and the pain he'd caused. Joan, sensing my hesitation, stepped forward. "That's all well and good, Dane, but actions speak louder than words. Why don't you come inside and we can discuss this like adults?" As we settled in Joan's living room, the tension was palpable. Dane kept glancing at me, his eyes pleading. Just as Joan was about to speak, the front door burst open. "Party's here." A group of Dane's friends stumbled in, clearly drunk. My heart sank as I recognized Trevor, the ringleader of Dane's worst behavior. Dane jumped to his feet, his face pale. "Guys, what are you doing here? How did you even know where I was?" Trevor laughed, waving his phone. "GPS tracking, bro. We couldn't let you face the old ball and chain alone, could we?" I felt sick. "You've been tracking me?" Dane shook his head frantically. "No, Hannah, it's not like that. I wanted to make sure you were safe." Joan's voice cut through the chaos like a whip. "Everyone who wasn't invited needs to leave. Now." Trevor sneered at her. "Who's the old lady? Come on, Dane, ditch these buzzkills and let's go have some real fun." I watched Dane, holding my breath. This was it, the moment of truth. Would he choose his friends over his family once again? Dane looked at me, then at his friends, his face a mask of indecision. "Guys, I can't. Hannah's pregnant. I need to be here." Trevor rolled his eyes. "Pregnant? So what? That doesn't mean your life has to end. Come on, man, don't be whipped." Something in me snapped. I stood up, my voice shaking with fury. "Get out! All of you! You've ruined my marriage, my home, and now you're trying to ruin the one chance we have to fix things. Leave." Joan stepped forward, her eyes blazing. "You heard the lady. Out, before I call the police." As Trevor and the others shuffled out, grumbling, I turned to Dane. "If you walk out that door with them, we're done. For good." Dane looked torn, his gaze flicking between me and his retreating friends. "Hannah, choose Dane," I said, my hand resting protectively on my swollen belly. "Right now, us or them." The silence stretched, agonizing. Then, to my shock and Joan's visible disgust, Dane took a step towards the door. "I'm sorry," he whispered. I can't do this. I'm not ready." As the door closed behind him, I felt something inside me break. Tears streamed down my face as Joan wrapped me in a fierce hug. "Oh, honey," she murmured, "I'm so sorry, but you're better off without him." I nodded, unable to speak through my sobs. As the sound of Dane's car faded into the distance, I realized with startling clarity that this truly was the end. There was no going back now. "What do I do now?" I whispered, feeling lost and overwhelmed. Joan's voice was steel and velvet. "Now, my dear, we fight. For you, for that baby, and for the life you deserve. Are you ready?" I took a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. "Yes," I said, surprising myself with the strength in my voice. "I'm ready." The next morning, I woke with a sense of resolve I hadn't felt in months. Joan was already in the kitchen, nursing a cup of coffee. "I'm going back to the house," I announced. "I need to get my things and tell Dane it's over." Joan nodded, her eyes sharp. "I'm coming with you." As we pulled up to my old home, I felt a mix of dread and determination. The house was eerily quiet, a stark contrast to the constant parties of the past. I unlocked the door. Joan closed behind me. The living room was a disaster. Empty bottles, overturned furniture, and the lingering smell of stale beer. "Dane?" I called out. No answer. We made our way upstairs, and I froze at the bedroom door. Clothes were strewn everywhere, and there in the middle of our bed was Dane, passed out with a woman I didn't recognize. "Oh, honey," Joan whispered, squeezing my shoulder. The pain that shot through me was almost physical, but beneath it, fire of anger began to burn. "Dane!" I shouted, my voice echoing through the room. He jolted awake, his eyes widening as he took in the scene. "Hannah! What are you doing here?" The woman beside him stirred, looking confused and embarrassed. "I came to get my things," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "and to tell you it's over. I want a divorce." Dane stumbled out of bed, reaching for his pants. "Hannah, wait, this isn't— I can explain." "Save it," Joan snapped. "I think we've seen all we need to see." As I began gathering my belongings, Dane followed me around the room, pleading and making excuses. The woman quietly slipped out, avoiding eye contact. "Hannah, please," Dane begged. "I made a mistake. I was drunk. I wasn't thinking." I whirled on him, fury coursing through me. "A mistake? You've been making mistakes our entire marriage, Dane. I'm pregnant with your child, and you're out partying and sleeping with other women." "I'm sorry," he cried. "I'll change. I swear. We can work this out." I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. "No, we can't. It's too late." As I zipped up my suitcase, Dane's demeanor suddenly changed. His eyes hardened and he grabbed my arm. "You can't leave me," he hissed. "What about the baby? You can't take my child away." Joan stepped forward, her voice like ice. "Let her go, Dane. Now." But Dane was beyond reason. "This is all your fault," he shouted at Joan. "You turned her against me." "No, Dane," I said, wrenching my arm free. "You did that all on your own." What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Dane lunged at Joan, his face contorted with rage. I screamed, trying to get between them. In the scuffle, I lost my balance, stumbling backwards. I felt a sharp pain as I hit the edge of the dresser, then everything went black. When I came to, I was in a hospital bed, the steady beep of monitors filling the room. Joan sat beside me, her face etched with worry. "The baby?" I whispered, fear gripping my heart. Joan squeezed my hand. "She's okay, you both are." Relief washed over me, followed quickly by a wave of anger and determination. "Where's Dane?" I asked. "In custody," Joan replied. "Assault charges, and—" She hesitated. "Hannah, there's more. The police found drugs in the house, a lot of them." I closed my eyes, feeling a strange mix of shock and vindication. When I opened them again, I met Joan's gaze with steely resolve. "I want those divorce papers drawn up," I said, "and I want full custody." Joan nodded, a fierce pride in her eyes. "You've got it, honey, and I'll be with you every step of the way." As I lay there, one hand resting protectively on my belly, I knew that this was just the beginning. The road ahead would be hard, but for the first time in a long time, I felt ready to face it. 6 months after the divorce, I stood in the nursery of my childhood home, gently rocking my newborn daughter, Lily. The soft pink walls and the quiet hum of the mobile were a world away from the chaos of my life with Dane. As I gazed at Lily's peaceful face, my phone buzzed. It was a news alert about Dane's company. With trembling fingers, I opened the article. "Major financial firm implicated in drug scandal," the headline blared. As I read, my heart raced. Dane and several of his closest friends were being investigated for using the company to launder drug money. The parties, the erratic behavior, the drugs found in our house, it all suddenly made horrifying sense. I sank into the rocking chair, clutching Lily close. A knock at the door startled me. "Hannah?" It was Joan. "Have you seen the news?" I nodded, unable to speak. Joan entered, her face a mix of shock and vindication. "Oh, honey," she said, sitting on the ottoman beside me. "How are you feeling?" I took a deep breath. "Relieved," I admitted, surprising myself. "And free." Joan squeezed my hand. "You're stronger than you know, Hannah. You got out just in time." As we sat in companionable silence, my phone rang again. It was Max. "Hannah, I just heard," he said, his voice filled with concern. "Are you okay?" "I am," I replied, realizing it was true. "How are you holding up? I know Dane was your friend." Max sighed. "The Dane I knew died a long time ago. I'm just glad you and Lily are safe." After we hung up, I looked at Joan. "I need to do something. Can you watch Lily for an hour?" She nodded, understanding in her eyes. I drove to the county jail where Dane was being held. As I sat across from him in the visitation room, I barely recognized the man before me. He looked haggard, defeated. "Hannah," he said, his voice hoarse, "I'm so sorry for everything." I met his gaze steadily. "I'm not here for your apology, Dane. I'm here to tell you that Lily and I are going to be fine. We're moving forward, and you need to let us go." Dane's eyes filled with tears. Can I ever see her?" I shook my head. "Not now. Maybe someday when she's older if she wants to, but that's her choice to make, not yours or mine." As I stood to leave, Dane called out, "I did love you, Hannah, in my own messed-up way." I paused at the door. "I know, but sometimes love isn't enough. Goodbye, Dane." Driving home, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The future stretched out before me, uncertain but full of possibility. Back in the nursery, I found Joan singing softly to Lily. She looked up as I entered, a knowing smile on her face. "Feel better?" she asked. I nodded, taking Lily into my arms. "I feel ready for whatever comes next." Joan stood, wrapping us both in a warm embrace. "That's my girl. You've got this, Hannah, and you've got us." As the sun set outside, casting a golden glow through the window, I looked down at my daughter, her tiny hand wrapped around my finger, and in that moment, I knew we would be okay. "You and me, little one," I whispered. "We're going to build a beautiful life together." Lily cooed softly, as if in agreement. And for the first time in a long time, I felt hope blooming in my chest. Strong, resilient, and unstoppable. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face it head on. With Lily in my arms, Joan by my side, and friends like Max to support us, I knew we could weather any storm. As I put Lily to bed that night, I made a silent vow. We would learn from the past, but we wouldn't be defined by it. We would build a life filled with love, laughter, and strength. And most importantly, we would never settle for less than we deserved. The tides had turned, and this time they were carrying us towards a brighter shore.